Hello and welcome to 10-Minute Elections. Today is Friday, July 24th, 2020. As I know, this week's upload schedule was pushed back a day with Tuesday and Friday uploads, but rest assured that come next week, I'll be back to my typical Monday and Thursday uploads. So today's video, I want to talk about Montana. And I do because we have not one, not two, not three, but four competitive or potentially competitive races here, all statewide, and there's enough polling data to draw conclusions, but not much more than that, and we're still a ways out from the election. So these are all going to be really interesting races to talk about. Let's get right into it because just this past week, Public Policy Polling, which is generally a well-respected pollster, released a new poll, so I have that whole thing here. Let's unpack this. So question 1 regards approval, and this is about what you would expect, a 5-point net approval rating for the president in the state of Montana, about 50% on that approval. With Joe Biden, Joe Biden is unexpectedly far underwater here. So the presidential race, that's part of the reason I wrote it as likely. It would be a likely win anyway, but Joe Biden is not all that popular in the state of Montana, which is somewhat surprising because Barack Obama lost the state to John McCain by about 2 points in 2008, so not much at all. So Donald Trump holds a 9-point lead over Joe Biden, and this is odd because of the fact that Donald Trump is above water here. Joe Biden um, in the negative by over 20 points, and yet he only trails by 9 here, so that's a little bit surprising. Now, Steve Bullock is the popular Democratic incumbent governor in the state of Montana, so he's got a plus 12 approval rating. Steve Daines, the Republican senator from Montana, with a plus 1 approval rating, and Steve Bullock with a 2-point lead over Steve Daines in this poll with 10% undecided. Remember, a 46-44 lead is much different than a 50-48 lead. This is not nearly as surefire. 46-44 means that Steve Bullock needs to get probably at least 3 more percent. Senate races, the third party vote share is generally very low, where Steve Daines has a little more ground to make up. So this is promising for Steve Bullock for sure, but it's far from a done deal. This is not the 2-point lead that we're seeing with a poll like 49-47 or 50-48. So Mike Cooney is the Democratic incumbent lieutenant governor, and lieutenant governors generally don't have high approval plus disapproval ratings. That's an indicator of how well known a politician is and how much of an incumbency advantage they have. So Mike Cooney's not going to have much of an incumbency advantage, given that half the state has no opinion of him whatsoever. He is plus 2, but only with a 27% approval rating, 25% unfavorable. Greg Gianforte is going to be the Republican nominee, and he is not all that well liked in the state of Montana. Check that 47% disapproval rating with 12% unsure. Only a 40% approval rating. That's just about where the president is, so not promising for Greg Gianforte. However, and this is also surprising, Greg Gianforte holds a 4-point lead over Mike Cooney. I just think the incumbency advantage doesn't really come into play for Mike Cooney because of how high that not sure tally is. But again, 46-42. Don't read too much into that one because you're not winning any elections with 46% of the vote unless it's 2016. So, favorable or unfavorable opinion of Kathleen Williams is the next question. She's going to be the Democratic candidate for U.S. House. Montana only has one representative that they send to Congress, so that is at large. It is a statewide vote. So 37% favorable, 33% unfavorable, 30% not sure. Those are promising numbers for Kathleen Williams. That's probably where Kathleen Williams, as a Montana Democrat, wants to be right now. Matt Rosendale is yet another unpopular Republican nominee in a state that is fairly heavily Republican. He is -6 with 26% having not heard of him. So Kathleen Williams and Matt Rosendale have fairly similar unsure ratings. So the poll shows Kathleen Williams and Matt Rosendale neck and neck at 44%, so a lot of room to go in this election. And again, no one's winning elections with 44%. So we'll watch how these candidates adapt to the changing race over time, probably shooting for that 49% and 50% to call out race in polls. So in the 2016 election, This is an exit poll. This is a post-election poll. 52% went for Trump, 36% went for Hillary Clinton, and 12% went for someone else or did not vote. Yeah, that's pretty on par with the results. About 50-50 woman and man. If you're a Democrat, press 1. If you're a Republican, plus 2. Otherwise, press 3. We have the Democrats at 29%, the Republicans at 37%, and Independents at 33%. This is telling. We think of Montana as a very Republican state. Only 37% of people polled in Montana were even self-identifying Republicans. So Democrats, Republicans, and Independents are actually pretty even here. It's just that Independents are Republicans in practice in Montana, mostly. It's a heavily white state, so Joe Biden is probably the right candidate here in the presidential race, which is again a long shot. We have the age demographics here, and let's go ahead and move to the next slide. The last two questions really aren't all that important. These are some polls. Steve Bullock and Steve Daines, they're the ones we have. We see that public policy poll I just unpacked, giving Bullock 46%, Daines 44%. This is probably the most accurate poll given the fact that 1,224 voters were asked in this poll. Bullock continues to hold a very small lead. 0.2% is the average. I still give Bullock the upper hand, but I do rate this race as a toss-up. So let's take a look at where Montana fits in the Senate election map. You notice I have moved Mississippi over to a likely. That corresponds to me moving the presidential race from a safe to a likely. So this map gives the Democrats 50 seats, the Republicans 48 seats, and one toss-up seat. That is a state of Iowa, Teresa Greenfield and Joni Ernst, and Montana is the 100th seat here. So if the toss-up goes to the Republicans and Donald Trump wins the election, then Montana would decide control of the Senate, but more likely Joe Biden wins, and say Republicans, though, are able to win. Let's say Republicans win in North Carolina and Iowa. Montana then again decides control of the Senate, so a crucial race here for both sides. So these are the polls I have, as I'm sorry for a bit of distortion here. The polls for the House race are on top, gubernatorial elections on bottom, and I really don't have much here. Matt Rosendale holds a small lead in a couple of polls, but the big takeaway from the House polls is that it's a very close race. There's still a lot of room to go, but Kathleen Williams is not leading at this point. You say what you want about Matt Rosendale, but Kathleen Williams does not have the upper hand in this race. It's unclear if Matt Rosendale does, given the fact that we have a +9 and an even poll right next to each other. And then in the gubernatorial election, Greg Gianforte probably does have the upper hand, despite his very low approval ratings, very high disapproval ratings for a Republican in the state of Montana. He is still leading Mike Cooney, although 47%, 46%, 46%, that's a little more promising than some of the other polls we've seen, but Gianforte is going to need to take another couple percent if he really wants to have this election in the bag. So my ratings for the state of Montana as of July 23rd. President, I rate the race as a likely Republican. The Senate race I rate as a toss-up. And the gubernatorial and House elections I rate both as lean Republicans. And I'm excited for some great content that I've got coming out. On Monday, that will be the 2022 midterm elections. I want to talk about if Republicans are viable in the House, which is generally competitive every election, as well as the Senate, where Democrats are going to make gains. The question is just how much, because you've got a whole lot of battleground states with Republican incumbents, some of which are retiring. We really don't know what Ron Johnson's doing. Richard Burr in North Carolina, I think, is retiring. So it's going to be an interesting map, and one that's definitely very favorable to the Democrats, although it's not like the 2018 map where we had folks like Claire McCaskill and Heidi Heitkamp running for re-election in ruby red states. Then next Thursday, I think I want to do either an Iowa State of the Day, or I don't know if I had another video planned, but great to look ahead. I'm just discussing this because I've got some time in my 10 minutes. I've really covered what I wanted to with Montana, but now that 10 minutes is up. So once again, thank y'all for watching. Please like and subscribe, comment if you enjoyed, and I'll see y'all on Monday to unpack some very interesting maps.